kids. Nothing against kids. This just happens to be a recurring theme this year. All right, let me reintroduce to you the director of Kill List, Mr. Ben Wheatley. And also, can we get producer Andy Stark up on stage too? Andy, come on. We're welcome, Andy. Come on, Andy.
I'm not taking the blame for this alone. Here he comes, sloping towards Bethlehem.
So, we've seen over the years a lot of different occult films. Obviously, The Wicker Man, Race with the Devil, Devil's Reign. What inspired you to make this film?
After doing Down Terrace, I wanted to make Down Terrace had been a crime film, but through this kind of lens of kind of socio-realist kind of Alan Clark and the world. And I wanted to make a horror film in the same vein. And I sat down and I thought about the things that scared me shitless, and I made a list of them. And one of the things was a recurring dream I had as a kid, which was basically what happens in this with the cult. And I thought, you know, if it scared me as a child and continued to scare me, then it would probably strike a chord with an audience. So that's why we got to that.
And you've got like a really good revenue. This is obvious. You should go back and you should try and find Down Terrace, because you've got the same kind of real control relationship with your actors, where it's very kind of earthy, kitchen sink performances that you get out of them. Can you talk about the two lead actors and how you work with them?
Basically, everybody in the film I'd worked with before, and I wrote the parts with Amy Jump, my co-writer and wife, specifically for those actors. So it wasn't in the sense that there's a normal casting process where you'd write a script and try and find people who fit the characters. We knew exactly who we wanted. And when we went to the finances, we made a short, did a day's shoot of the dinner party scene and showed them that and said, these are the people we want in it. We didn't show them anybody else. And I think that's the route to getting really realistic performances, is because they're based around kind of character facets of the real actors' parts, rather than, so they don't have to act as much.
What other work have they done? I mean, they're actually kind of more comedic actors.
No, I mean, Neil Maskell, who plays Jay, has been in lots of kind of football violence and British crime films. Mianna Bjøring, who plays Shell, has been in The Descent and kind of Lesbian Vampire Killers and Doomsday and all those kinds of movies. And I kind of imagined them as if they'd been in the 60s, she would have been like a Hammer actress. And Neil would have probably been in the background performance and villain and all those kinds of movies. So it's a kind of folding over of the genres together through casting a little bit.
Andy, come on. Because Andy and his partner Pete Toombs are responsible for one of the best DVD labels, Mondo Macabro, which is weird, bizarre, cinema. So how did the two of you meet? Like you served as producer on Down Terrace as well. How did you guys get together?
Weirdly, we've known each other for about 20 years, but we've been wise enough never to work with each other for a long time. So.
Andy was the only adult we ever knew when we were making films at the start. He was the only person who could get, these days it's like, it's just embarrassing that you can get an edit suite on your laptop, but back in the day, quite hard, and he was the only person who had a key to an edit suite, so he had to be his friend.
It's that shower.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes?
First of all, I want to say, I don't get why Mark Turnbull said you really appreciate the movie but actually enjoying it. One thing I'm wondering is the actors themselves, how much freedom do they have to improv around some of the scenes to be very loose and real time?
The question is, how much freedom do the actors have to with the performance to kind of improvise something?
Kind of working. I worked on a Mando Anucci show called Time Trumpet, and I followed the kind of a lot of the techniques he uses on the thick of it. And one of them that he uses, which is brilliant, is that you do a take on the script, you do several takes on the script, and you let them paraphrase off the script. So you don't have the normal problems that come with improvisation, which is just some wild fucking formless nonsense that comes out of people's mouths after time. You just take the the meaning of the actual script, and you allow them to put it back into their own words. And you get the urgency of improvised dialogue, but with the meaning of scripted dialogue. And we did that on every scene. So we'd go on one take on, one take off, one take on, one take off. And then sometimes we ran the scenes in and ran the scenes out into improvisation. So some things like the dinner party at the start were filmed in real time. So they ate the food, they lived that moment all the way through until they hit like the scripted bits of it. And then we used the best bits out of the beginning of the improvisation. So Smiley kind of going on about, I'll bless this and I'll do it in Irish, it's improvisation, but then the arse end of the scene is actually quite highly scripted. So yeah, we let them have their head a lot. And there was a lot of improvisation up to the point where we had a really good time on set, everyone was laughing, and when the cast came to see the first cut of the movie, they were really, really upset because they thought they'd been in a comedy. And there was quite a bit of explaining to do to them. But of course, they'd read the script, so what the fuck they were thinking about.
Yes? Michael Smiley, the casting, have you worked with him before to let you to work with him?
I worked with Smiley on a sketch show called Wrong Door, and basically it was Rob Hill, who was in Down Terrace and casting, who's also the editor on this, and we needed someone who looked like a pirate. And he said, why don't you use that guy from... And he said, why don't you use that guy from Space who plays Tyres? And I was like, I don't know, I've not seen that bit of Space, but, you know, went back and looked at him. He got Smiley in, and instantly knew he was, you know, a fantastic actor, because we gave him loads of really stupid piratey dialogue, and he did it really, really well. And he held his own against Brian Blessed, which is always a tricky thing to do. So, and from that point on, basically this show, Wrong Door, had an enormous cast. I met a lot, so I met Mianna Björing and Neil Maskell on that show as well. And it was basically just, I was basically casting through that show for the next like 5 or 6 years of work, so I'd always dig back to that and see who I'd used on that show and kind of use them again.
Yes, they were right there.
Thanks very much. Feel pretty beat up after that. Mr. Wheatley, any relationship to debts? And if so or not, done much reading and stuff?
The question was, are you related to the occult novelist Dennis Wheatley? And if not, have you read his stuff?
No. I'm afraid, so...
Dennis Wheatley wrote a novel called The Devil Rides Out, which was turned into a really chilling Hammer film about the cult as well with Christopher Lee. So check that out. Good stuff. Anyone in the balcony? You just all shell-shocked up there. Shell-shocked. Okay, yes?
Where was this filmed?
Where was this filmed?
It was filmed primarily in Sheffield, and all the house stuff was done in Brig, a town called Brig, which is in Andy's sister-in-law's house. So they were very pleased.
Slightly horrified by her nightdress being on screen. But
yeah, all the saucy lingerie is theirs.
So I told her to pack it out before we started filming, but she just forgot.
Yes? Were there challenges, once asked about the cinematography, were there challenges shooting in all the different kind of low releases, and what kind of choice did you make for that?
Laurie Rose, who shot the film, had shot Down Terrace as well, and he's a bit of a hero, Laurie. He kind of operates the camera and he focuses it as well, so he's kind of a one-man band with a very small crew, so it's Laurie and Nick Gillespie's his assistant, and they've shot on red, on digital. The low light stuff was a real revelation to us because the camera was pretty new when we got it. Everyone was warning us, this camera's fucked, it doesn't work properly, except for Kareem Hussein, who said it was really good.
Kareem Hussein, the DOP of Hobo with a Shotgun.
Laurie Rose.
Yeah, they helped us out immensely. So, go Hobo. So it was like the first generation of cameras that were shooting with virtually no light. So a lot of that stuff was insane, there was hardly, it's all just practically lit. So, you know, it was quite ballsy. We were kind of going, oh God, is it going to come out? But it was fine. And some of the scenes we shot, it was so dark we couldn't find a way back, but the camera could see more than our eyes could see. So it was a very impressive camera. Yes?
Can you talk about the significance of the people chosen for the kill list?
No.
Yes, sir, you want to say? How do you shoot the hammer sequence?
Well, there's a thing. It's Occam's razor. How do you shoot something like that? You know, what's the easiest way of shooting that? And it's basically to hit someone with a hammer. So we hit the shit out of Mark Kempner with a hammer. It wasn't obviously not a real hammer, but it was quite a realistic one. And he had this safety word, which was enough. Obviously that take, you know, we only used three blows of the hammer in the edit, but Neil smashed him about 9-10 times, and he had to go off to. He was doing some kind of corporate bonding gig later on that day, and he had massive red welts all over his head. So he's a massive hero to me, Mark Kempner, a most dedicated actor. I mean, but seriously, it had come that scene had kind of come from doing. I've done a lot of online viral kind of fake camcorder stuff, and from that I learned that, you know, a lot of this stuff is that it's a kind of like weirdly artificial. And in a gore situation, you expect it to suddenly jump into jump cut to some big head being squashed or something like that, and that may be more graphic, but in a way it lets you off as the audience because you know it's then fake. Something like that feels more like a kind of an execution clip you might find on YouTube by accident one day when you were surfing something else. And you know, we were looking for that kind of feeling of you watching going, oh dear, no, oh, don't do that again, oh God, no, oh, you know, and I assume that's why, but yeah. Yes.
Thanks for telling us about the dream that inspired the story. But as far as the two main characters go, they could have just easily been ordinary hitmen. You chose to give them a considerable backstory about their war trauma and so on. How did that come about?
I wanted it to be more grounded in some kind of reality. You know, it's like hitmen. The kind of trope of hitmen has become over time got this weird kind of patina of genre across it, where they've become almost like folk heroes. And you know, there's no mafia in England. You know, there are no trench-coated hitmen, Fritzi's Honour style. You know, it just doesn't exist. You know, people who kill people for money in England are grotty, kind of desperate characters who do it for 30 quid. It's a crack. You know, it's not. You know, there's not lots of John Woo style shootouts and stuff, but there are people who work as there's a route out from the army into things like Blackwater, or to, you know, being a mercenary, and then out from that into kind of professional murder. So I wanted to kind of base it in that world, but also wanted to make sure they felt very blue collar and real, rather than they're not glamorous and they're not Pulp Fiction people in there. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they're just, you know, they could have been we were talking about it today actually, it could have been a film about plumbers, and a very difficult set of forces that they have to install one after the other, until at the end a boiler blows up. That I feel that maybe you wouldn't have programmed it, and I don't think the world's ready for this plumbing epic plumb list. I'm thinking about it, I'm planning it. Maybe one day when I've grown up, I'll make a film like that about real world people.